Test, test. Does anybody want to sign up? Oh, Scott or Romero, if you want to sign up to speak. No? Okay. And if anybody on Zoom wants to sign up, just raise your hand and the clerk will make note. Raise your Zoom hands. All right, before we start, just a few quick public service announcements. For an emergency, please note the exits on either side of the chambers and proceed down the stairs. Bathrooms are located to my left, the women's room to the right, men's room to the left. We allow 30 minutes for public speaking. If you have not done so already, well, you should have signed up already because we just took up the sheet. And on Zoom, if you could just raise your Zoom hands and the clerk will make note. I'm now calling this special Common Council meeting to order at 7:34 p.m. on January 26, 2023. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. You may remain standing for the whole meeting. May I please have a roll call?
Alderman Hill. Here. Alderman Frankel.
Present.
Alderman Scott Childress. Here. Alderman Worthington. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Davis. Here. Alderman Oliveri.
Here.
Alderman Shabbat.
Here.
Alderman Hirsch.
Present.
We have a quorum. We're now entering into the public speaking portion of the meeting. We have allotted 30 minutes for this purpose. Speakers will have 3 minutes. If there are remaining speakers after 30 minutes, I will call for a motion from the council to extend the period for another 30 minutes. Speakers, direct your comments to the chair, as council members cannot engage in debate during this time. Please state your name and address on the record before you address the council. For the audience in chambers and on Zoom, there shall be no distractions when a speaker is addressing the council. The Common Council has also received written comments for our consideration, and they could be found on the city's website under tonight's agenda. Can I have the first speaker, please? We'll do chambers first.
Scott Denny.
Does this mean I get to speak a lot longer, or how does this work now?
3 minutes. We
3
only
minutes,
have the
okay.
30 minutes. Yep.
Good evening, Madam President, Common Council members. First, I would like to thank the council for the opportunity to speak this evening. As members of the Common Council, I would ask each of you to take the ample time needed to carefully and reasonably debate the redistricting plan and vote only for what is best for your constituents, their ward, and the city of Kingston as a whole. First and foremost is my opinion that while each of you consider Plan A, B, or C, it is imperative that each of your votes be cast with your constituents' best interest in mind and the best interest of the entire ward that you represent. Secondly, I feel it is imperative that the council not be influenced by Mayor Steve Noble and certainly not by Corporation Council, unless there is a legal matter that absolutely needs to be addressed. As we are aware, each of the redistricting plans will create different results for each ward, yet some will be more impacted by than others. So please vote on the Kingston community's behalf, and please leave politics aside. I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Is that the only one for chambers? All right, we'll move to Zoom now.
Jonathan Bix.
Hey all, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. We have about 5 or 6 people here for the Menny's community meeting going on at the same time who want to speak. So is it all right if we just go one after the other person and speak?
How many speakers do you have?
Probably about 5.
That's fine. We'll
Okay.
just need everybody's name for the name and address for the record when they come up.
Great. I think we'll start with Phil Erner, who's here, and I will go get the other folks, and I can speak last.
All right, great. Thank you.
Hey everyone, can you see me and hear me?
Hi, Phil. We could hear you, but we can't see you. I don't know if you could put the camera on or, I mean,
Let's see if I can do that. Well, I don't know how to do that. Is it all right if I just proceed?
that's fine. There's nothing legally wrong with this. We could hear you fine.
Okay,
So
thank you
nice
very
to hear you, Phil.
Thank you, President Shaw. So this is Phil Erner, 109 Washington Avenue. And you might have received my comment before, and I am actually here to withdraw a part of that comment. I no longer support Plan C. I think Plan A is the way to go, and I'm sure you're going to hear from some other folks a number of reasons, but I'll just describe briefly my experience and why I changed my mind. I had originally supported C based on what you might have seen in the letter in terms of line up with the county lines. It was my perception that made more sense, and also some demographic things. But looking further into it, I was wrong. I think that the demographics actually under Plan A make more sense. I think that the data were a little bit difficult to discern, but after speaking with folks in various neighborhoods and around the city, it's my conclusion that Plan A is the way to go to preserve certain neighborhoods' identities that are pretty well established, keep working class power from getting diluted and not represented. And I actually think racial and ethnic representation would be better served by Plan A as well. So thank you for accepting my reconsidering my previous written comments, and I'll pass to the next person.
Thank So if the next speaker could come up and just say their name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Isabel Lee. I'm a resident of Kingston.
Welcome. We could hear you, so you're all set for 3 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So dear City of Kingston Common Council, like I said, my name is Isabel. I live in Uptown in Kingston. I've been a resident of this wonderful city for about less than a year, but I'm very passionate about housing justice in this wonderful city of ours. And I really believe that the Common Council should adopt redistricting Plan A. I really think that Plan A keeps together historically connected communities. Like my previous member said, I really think that we should not be separating these historically ethnic communities, and we should not be weakening their voting power, especially considering the economic considerations of class. We really do not want to be weakening the power of the working class, especially of the people of color of our community, right? So I strongly believe that Plan C would be detrimental to that. I really think that Plan C would be separating these communities. And so I strongly believe that we should be sticking to Map A. So that is my address for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the next speaker, please. Again, name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Charlotte. I live in Stony Run in Kingston. I've been a resident of the city of Kingston for 25 years, my whole life. And I also believe that redistricting Plan A is the way to go. Plan C breaks up the minority communities and takes away the power that they have in those communities. When you keep them together, it makes their voice stronger. And we want to make sure that everyone's represented in this city. Everyone wants to be able to continue to engage with the local government and preserve the community as they know it. And we just don't want things broken up in a way that people can't have their voices heard. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Charlotte, before you go, can you just tell us your last name for the record, please?
My name is Charlotte Lloyd.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Just name and address for the record.
Hi, all. Last speaker. This is Jonathan Bix again. I live at 16 Josephine Avenue. Been a homeowner in the city of Kingston for about 4 years now. And yeah, I don't feel like I need to repeat everything that our fellow community members at our meeting have said. I agree with everything that they laid out. And I do just really think that Plan A is really important for you all to pass as the better plan for connecting and keeping together historically connected communities, and it would create the least amount of disruption to Kingston residents. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's it for you guys over there?
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
All right, we have another hands on Zoom.
Ravin Ranga.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Great. Thanks so much for your time. My name is Bravin Runga. I'm the political director at For the Many. It's very clear that we at For the Many are paying very close attention to this process because it's so important for the future of Kingston. And I want to just thank the Common Council for their time. You know, our mission is to organize immigrants, tenants, people of color, and folks across the multiracial working class in Kingston to fight for a future that works for everybody. And so many issues can really be addressed in a meaningful way at the local level, from housing to climate change mitigation to making our communities more inclusive to immigrants. And a huge part of our job as community organizers is getting folks to engage in local government, whether it be a common council meeting like this, local elections, different things to make change. You know, I saw in the Daily Freeman the other day that last year Kingston issued 200 municipal IDs, which is an amazing accomplishment. And that allows so many folks, immigrants and other folks, to have access to those IDs and get access to services. And this victory, like so many others, from local good cause eviction to rent stabilization, comes from a city government that is accessible to the public. And it's always a challenge to get folks involved in the civic process, as I'm sure you're all aware. But it makes it easier when folks know their alderperson, when folks know what ward they're in and that ward remains consistent, and when they know their neighbors. And the current redistricting decision will affect how folks engage in local government, whether it be passing local laws or voting in local elections this year. And we strongly believe that Plan A is the strongest plan being considered. It keeps together historically connected communities, whether that be geographic communities like the hamlet of Wilbur or communities of color. And it would create the least amount of disruption to Kingston residents and would allow community members to continue to engage in the civic process without all sorts of confusion. Plan C, meanwhile, while I'm sure is very well intentioned, would separate historic communities. It would split ethnic minorities into multiple different wards, thus diluting their power and their vote share. And it would create a ton of disruption for Kingston residents. And so isn't worth the confusion and chaos it would create. The best way to ensure that Kingston residents remain engaged in local government, make sure that they show up in elections this year, make sure that they feel like they're being represented by local
30
government
seconds.
is to move forward with Plan A and ensure folks can remain civically engaged. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers? Anybody else in chambers or on Zoom who would like to speak? All right, hearing no speakers, I will close the public speaking portion of the meeting. We now enter into the report of committees, I guess there's two, starting with the second reading of local law number 3.
Local Law 3 of 2023 of the City of Kingston, New York, Civil Division of the City.
So just for an explanation, because both of these have the same number and the same title, what we are discussing and voting on is the one that came out with the majority support of Laws and Rules, otherwise known as MAP A. So having said that, is there anyone who would like to discuss? Any?
Point of clarification, are we discussing A or C? Is that what you're inviting us to discuss, or just A?
Well, the vote is going to be on A. You could discuss C because it's the MAP process. Thank you for clarifying. Alderman Carl Frankel.
Thank you, Madam President. I've heard the comments from the folks For the Many, and I'll address them briefly in a moment. But I want them and Kingston to know that I plan
I'm
on-
sorry, Carl, can you just hold everybody when you talk, can you just hold the mic up
Sure.
like this? Thank you.
I will be voting in favor of Plan C. I don't think Plan A is a disaster, But overall, I believe Plan C is by far the better option. My reasons are as follows. First, as the representative of Ward 2, my community isn't one community or neighborhood. It's sort of like a dumbbell connected at the middle. There's Uptown Kingston, there's the Albany corridor, and then there's Midtown Kingston. The two communities are only technically contiguous because of the Albany Avenue corridor. It's a real kludge, two legitimate freestanding communities, Uptown and Midtown east of Broadway, glued together in a way that doesn't practically, emotionally, or communitarianly, if you will, make sense. Plan C remedies this by giving Midtown east of Broadway its own ward. In my view, political wards should replicate actual organic communities as much as legally possible. Plan C does a much better job of doing this, in my opinion, than Plan A. I understand that this creates issues or would create issues for the new Ward 3, which will include the Uptown Business District and more suburban parts of Uptown, if you will. But there is much more actual commonality here than exists with the current Ward 2 layout. Overall, I think the new approach is decidedly better. Second, Broadway is an actual geographic boundary in Kingston. It is a dividing line. Under Plan C, significant chunks of Broadway become ward boundaries as well. This makes sense. Wards make more sense when they reflect people's actual lived experience. Having Broadway as a dividing line does this, and it is only Plan C that offers this. Third, overall, and despite the multiple comments tonight from For the Many, I believe that the overall weight of the comments has been in favor of Plan C. There are times when it is appropriate to override the desires of constituents. For instance, when a deep moral issue is involved or the madness of crowds is taken over. Neither exception applies here. I'll cite just two examples of respected local personages who are strongly for Plan C. Tom Hoffe is one of my constituents. He lives on Tremper Avenue in Midtown, and he has a long background in local politics, as many of you know. It's my understanding that he had a hand in creating the current ward map, although I may be wrong about that. In any case, he has authorized me to say that he is strongly in favor of Plan C. Why? As I said, because it gives Midtown east of Broadway its own discrete representation, and this is as it should be. Heidi Kirschner, who heads up the YMCA, has also come out strongly in favor of Plan C. This is another example of a committed citizen who's taken a close look at Plan C and decided that it's better for the city. Fourth, the argument has been made that Plan C will decrease the political clout of minority groups. This, for me, is a specious argument, a red herring. Ward 4 is a largely minority ward, and it will stay that way. Yes, Plan C adds a few blocks of a non-minority area, but the fundamental situation will stay the same. And the voice of minority groups will be louder, if not necessarily dominant, in other wards under Plan C. The bottom line here is that Plan C is not a negative for minority groups. Not in my view anyway. Fifth, and last, and perhaps most importantly, Plan C looks more to the future, and Plan A builds more from the past. Our city is establishing a remarkable track record vis-a-vis sustainability and other critically important small city governance issues, largely for one reason. Our administration is so forward-looking. Plan C is aligned with what we as a city are and with what we should continue to aspire to be. It is more congruent with our true identity. Those are my points why I'm in favor of Plan C, but I think I should note that the outcome of this vote has zero impact on me, politically speaking. I announced over a month ago that I won't be running again. In opting to go with Plan C, I have zero stake politically. My sole focus has been on what is best for the city of Kingston. Thank you.
Thank you. Just remember, I know I sent this out as a reminder for our rules, you get 2 times to speak and 15 minutes total for those times. Alderman Rennie Scott Childress.
Thank you, President Schott. First, I'd like to recognize the hard work put in by the 3 members of the subcommittee, Mike, Rita, and Barbara. You all did an amazing amount of thinking through this process, put in a lot of effort. did your very best to try to bring in citizens from all around the city. I think it's really a powerful testament to your interest and your desire to come to a good conclusion. I'd also like to acknowledge the importance of the decennial readjustment. As far as I understand, this has not always been the case, and I think this is super important for us to really think through who's moving into Kingston, where are folks moving within Kingston, how do we ensure that we have good representation across the board. In general, both maps achieve what we need to do. They meet the legal requirements. This does, though, kind of leave us a little bit bereft in terms of thinking about criteria. As we look at it, it's fascinating to see significant demographic changes. We've seen a significant decrease of the white population by some 800 folks, and an increase of the Hispanic Latino population by more than 600 folks, as well as an increase in our black population by 170 over the last 10 years. So both maps provide for significant diversity. This is actually a representation of settlement patterns as much as ward boundaries. You can see that in the distribution of the different populations under both maps. However, the map maker, he knows a few sets of data required by state and federal law. What he does not know is the history, the flow of traffic and commerce, the familial attachments, the connections among different neighborhoods and the like. My main criterion for considering Map C has been that I need to see a clearly compelling set of changes. The fact that both maps achieve the legal requirements already suggests that there is no significant compelling reason to consider C. Moreover, I have deep concerns that Map C, rather than Map A, would cause problems, and so I think Map A is definitely the superior choice. When we look at Map A, we see that it more closely follows traditional neighborhoods. For example, it maintains Wilbur as a discrete community. It maintains the power of Ward 4. It maintains the current character of several wards, 1, 2, 3, and 9, for example. It has produced a current common council, which is made up of 33% of Kingstonians of color. And it protects in significant ways the specific minority-majority status of Ward 4. If we look at Map C, I want to note a couple of things. One is, I think we have to take Map C in some historical context. First, I hope everybody can recall the disastrous destruction of Rondout during the 1960s and 70s, when city leaders at that time decided to destroy a very wonderful, integrated, socially vibrant neighborhood. And in that process, scattered lots of families, broke up neighborhoods, and left Kingston much worse off than it was before in terms of neighborhoods. I also want to note that I come from down south, where we always have to be very careful that people who talk about diversity sometimes are in fact masking a dilution of power by trying to get people of color into different voting districts so that they do not have the power to elect an adequate representation. So even though Map C may suggest diversity, it does so at the cost of diluting the minority-majority power of Ward 4. It includes in that ward a wealthier, whiter population that has moved into the ward along Fair Street and Wall Street. And it creates a serious class divide in that ward, so that now you've got folks who are, to a certain extent, on the low end of the income scale right now, and you now are adding some of the wealthiest members of the Kingston community into that ward. And I think that creates some real problems. And if it seems to make sense to shift the eastern Ward 4 boundary to Broadway as a quote-unquote natural dividing line, it only eliminates the current natural boundary of Albany Avenue on the north and cuts off several blocks from Ward 4 that are beyond St. James. It equals out. I can see that the new Ward 2 in Map C would create a concentration of Hispanic and Latino voters, but it comes at the expense of Ward 4. And so what might look like increasing the number of minority-majority districts from our current 1 to 2, it in fact merely replaces one with another. Ward 5 gets carved up into 5 wholly distinct geographical areas cut off from each other, literally cut off from each other. And as noted, it divides the traditional community of Wilbur. Map C may make a specific neighborhood more coherent here and there, but it does so at the expense of disorienting other neighborhoods. This then is no improvement, just a shift of awkward boundaries. More diversity, quote unquote, does not translate into more power or more direct potential to elect representatives from minority communities. You can see this if you look at how there is little concentration of Hispanic and Latino populations, certainly not significantly different than Map A, and so there is no greater potential for electing a Hispanic Latino member of the council under C than under A. Ward 1 encompasses more territory and spreads across somewhat natural boundary of Lucas now. Map C, despite appearances, maintains the current basic areas of several wards, clearly 7 and 8, but also actually Ward 6, despite the look of including a vast expanse of unoccupied territory. So if we compare the two, both maps have compact and sprawling wards. Ward 8 remains sprawling in both. Ward 5 is sprawling in C. Ward 1 takes in a separate neighborhood from the old Ward 3. If Map C supposedly fixes the awkwardness of Ward 2, having both a commercial and residential district, it simply moves that awkwardness into Ward 3. This is no improvement, merely a transference of another awkwardness from an old ward into a new one. Map C, despite appearances of significant change, in fact, maintains significant aspects of our current layout and actually introduces disturbing elements. Ward 4 doesn't appear to change much in C, but in fact faces a significant dilution of minority-majority power with imposition of high-income white populations along Farron Wall. In the end, the major distinguishing feature of Map C is merely that it is somewhat different from our current map. Merely being different is no selling point. Map A is superior in maintaining a series of advantages, as I have noted. Because I am looking at the redistricting process holistically, in regard to the city as a whole, I will vote in favor of Map A.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? Alderwoman Rita Worthington.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, first, as Alderman Scott Childress said, I want to thank Alderwoman Hill for her commitment, hard work, and due diligence in this whole process. I also want to thank our mappers, our consultants, and Corporation Counsel's office for their work and assistance in helping us. So we have two maps here before us, redrawing the lines based on population changes from the previous census with the intended goal of making the wards more equitable. Equitable meaning making sure our wards had an equal amount of people in them. Now, during this process, the word diversity kept coming up. When I think of diversity, I think of groups of people who share social, cultural, racial, economic, and other concerns. I'm not sure that Map C does that. While it may make the wards more equitable, in numbers that is, it may do more damage by causing more disruption, diluting the voices, and representation. I'm in favor of Map A. I'm also concerned about Ward 4, which is majority minority. And I'm worried that the voices will be diluted. And while Plan C may look toward the future, I think we need to be concerned with what's happening now. Ward 9 will also be disrupted, those folk that are in the Wilbur area. And so for those reasons, I'm going to vote for Plan A, Map A. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam President. As an alderwoman, this is my first time working on redistricting, but for the past 16 years, I've raised a child with autism that I've had to fight for her education under federal law that dealt with diversity and inclusion. So I can say that I understand these concepts quite well. I first would like to say that under Map A, I think I find it better for Wilbur. Under Map C, they're actually being divided. The ward is not compact. They do not have anything in common with moving all the way up to Pearl Street It's not a compact neighborhood. And the actual line for the ward between 5 and 9 would cut down DeWitt Street, which is actually a dead-end street. So to get off the street, you would have to move from one ward to another. That is not contiguous. So the council is currently working to pass a new zoning code, and we are trying to create inclusionary zoning that helps dissolve the negative effects of redlining, urban renewal, along with outdated exclusionary zoning. We're trying to achieve this zoning so that all people in the city of Kingston have many more options for safe and affordable housing in every single neighborhood here in the city of Kingston. So when I look at these maps, I'm not comparing map A to map C. I'm comparing map A to the 2020 data, and I'm comparing map C to 2020 data. And I find that 5 out of the wards under map C become less diverse, while we create a district just for the Hispanic population, which I would like to say I love, and I'm more than happy that they are here. But I think that we are looking to solve a problem that may not exist if we then do have new zoning and people can live where they want. I think that it would be a good idea that at some point when the Common Council creates charter change, that we create a few at-large positions that could then represent communities of interest around the city, no matter where they live. And so I will be a vote for map A. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Alderman Steve Shabbat.
Thank you, Madam President.
Just
First
pick
of
up,
all,
carry your mic with you. Thank you.
I was going to call this a thankless job, but I'm here to say thank you to everybody who has put in the work. I mean, this has been a monumental task. I really appreciate Barbara chasing everybody down to make sure everybody was clear about what was going on. You know, it was just a lot of work, a lot of work. I want to thank Barb, everybody on the subcommittee, the entire council, laws and rules. Everybody's put a lot of work into this, and I'm presuming everybody on the council here has done their due diligence and looking at the maps thoroughly. But you know, this comes down to it's a matter of conjecture and opinions. I think somebody's already alluded to that. But we don't know how these changes are going to affect down the road. You know, they could be good, not so good. We're not quite sure about this, but we have to make a decision on them. I will be voting for A, and you know, most of mine is based on philosophical reasons, I guess. I think the possibility will exist that the voters of the altered district may have their voices lessened or possibly lose their voice as they have it now. Further, I think their identity may be diminished somewhat, you know, with the change in the boundary. I think their voices there are valuable. Their identities are valuable. They're a big asset to this community. I would hate to take a chance on losing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Alderwoman Barbara Hill.
Real question.
Okay.
So do we do all the comments now on the one resolution? Or
All comments on maps now.
Oh, okay. Then I will try to do it now.
Okay. Alderwoman Barbara Hill.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Madam President. And thank you, everyone, for hanging in there with this process. It's been a several-month process. A lot of work on community engagement. Thank you for everyone bringing their constituent feedback. I'm in favor of Plan C. I I'm learning a lot tonight as I'm listening, and this has been really helpful to me to learn more about Kingston, and I appreciate the depths to with, especially Rennie, how you've delved into the maps. It's really great to hear your comments. I'm for Plan C because many of the comments came in were for Plan C. And that came from a variety of residents and couple of legislators. I know Phil reversed his opinion on which plan he would support. I base my plan on conversations with constituents in my ward, other wards, leaders of nonprofits and churches in the city, especially in Midtown Kingston. Am I close enough to the mic?
You're fine. We can all
Okay.
hear you.
So I've really considered their feedback. I've sat and put the maps out, discussed where they live, if they're from an organization, where their constituents, where the people they serve live, and it's been a fascinating discussion. I've learned a lot. And I think that Plan C best reflects the demographic change that has occurred in Kingston. We've seen a significant growth in people of color, mostly of Latino population, over the past 10 years. I think it's a 3.4% increase. Rennie also noted that, yes, there is an increase in the Black population. I believe that Plan C does not weaken Ward 4, for instance, or dissolve its power with the addition of a few blocks of a more affluent demographic. This plan does not create multiple districts in order to, it's not diluting a ward's power. It's not intended to reduce the power of the ethnic minorities there. And I guess there's a term called cracking, which I'm learning these things as I go along this process, and we're not doing that. Plan C does not do that. We're not splitting ethnic minorities into different multiple wards and diluting the voting share of people of color or a working class population. I don't believe Plan C does that. And as noted before, we've been able to elect several people of color in Kingston, and we will continue to be able to do that. And I think that's regardless of what ward they live in or represent. To my knowledge, we have only elected one Latino to the council in our history. I'm not clear if that's true, and I hope we can elect more. I think that Plan C actually amplifies the ability of our ethnic minorities or communities of interest to all have a voice. And let's see. Yeah, I think that, we are one legislative body, and what we enact tonight probably will have a vote, and hopefully that will be the end of this process. I like to move on to other things. But we're voting on a set of maps that will provide the most equitable representation, I hope. And I think that's all I have to say. It's been a gratifying process in a lot of ways. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Anybody else? All right, hearing no more discussion, I'm going to call for the vote. So what we're voting on is for map A, what we're calling. It's the one that had the laws and rules majority support. So if you are in favor of map A, you're going to vote yay. If you're not in favor of map A, you're going to vote no. And when you do so, if you could raise your hands, I'd appreciate that. So here comes the vote. All in favor? All right, that is Alderman Steve Shabbat, Alderman Michael Oliveri, Alderwoman Naima Mohammed, Alderwoman Rita Worthington, Alderman Rennie Scott Childress, and Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch. Opposed? Opposed to map A? That is Tony Davis, Carl Frankel, and Barbara Hill. It is 6-3 in favor of local law 3. Right, I said that right? Yes. All right. Local law is adopted, 6-3. So just to explain the procedure for the our next step here is I am going to ask Elisa to read local law 3 that had the minority support of laws and rules, otherwise known as MAP C. Why we're doing that is in case the mayor vetoes it. So I'll explain as we keep going, but for right now, Elisa, can you read this?
Local Law 3 of 2023 of the City of Kingston, New York, Civil Division of the City.
On the question, Alderwoman Rita Worthington.
Madam President, I motion to table local law number 3, which is MAP C, until the next scheduled council meeting.
Is there a second? Okay, I think Rennie Scott Childress seconded it. So the reason why we're doing this is we're going to put this on the Tuesday meeting that I scheduled. In case the mayor vetoes after his public hearing on Monday, we would reconvene on Tuesday evening. We would then vote again. We could override the mayor's veto. And if we override the mayor's veto, then it would still be MAP A. If we do not have enough votes to override it, then it would go to a vote for this one. So we just don't want to kill this yet, just in case there is a veto. Is there any procedural questions? I spelled this out in an email and I could talk it through with anybody, but does anybody have procedural questions? So right now what we're doing, there's a motion to table this until the next scheduled council meeting, which is Tuesday, and there's a second. So I'm going to ask all in favor to table this local law 3. All in favor? Opposed? All right, tabled 9-0. I will let you know on Tuesday if there will be a meeting. We will only do that if there is a veto. The mayor did say he would let me know on Tuesday. All right, thank you all. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Rita Worthington. We hereby stand adjourned until the next scheduled meeting on Tuesday, January 31st, 2023 at 7 p.m. Thank you all very, very much. Dismiss.